today's episode, we meet actress Janet Anderson, who plays Essie in this multidisciplinary new work that blends together theatre, live cinema and XR technologies in an exploration of identity, anxiety and what it means to be real. Welcome to the Queer Conversation podcast, brought to you by LOTL Media, a show where we discuss all things queer. I am your host, Silke Bader, a publisher and producer in the LGBTQI space in Australia for the past 30 years. Collapsible is a funny and furious new work about navigating a world that cares so much about you keeping it together, it doesn't notice you falling apart. This coming-of-age comedy drama explores identity, anxiety, and what it means to be real. Janet, welcome to Queer Conversation. It's a pleasure to have you here today. You are the actress for a show that's opening on the 11th of March called Collapsible.
Yes.
And it's a really interesting concept and different type of show with a lot of technology is involved with it. So first of all, what is your character all about?
Well, in the show, I play a character called Essie, who I think is a reflection of a lot of different people. Certainly, she likes to think so. But she is a woman who's lost her job, lost her partner, and is kind of in a bit of a downward spiral, really, in like one of those periods in your life where you're just not really sure what's next. And so she performs this monologue kind of as with the audience as her internal kind of compass, really, just talking about how her whole life is kind of going past her and she's no longer sure kind of where she fits into all of it in, you know, the capitalist cog of the machine and everything like that. And so, Essie's really just talking about all the interactions she's having with people who know her really well and who love her. And she's trying to ascertain how they would describe her and how they see her, because at this point she's unsure of how she sees herself. And so the show has a lot of different elements. It talks a lot about mental health, especially kind of in the modern age with technology and the internet and, you know, late stage capitalism as it is. She throughout the show kind of goes on a journey of trying to find herself again after losing her job and her partner, and figure out kind of like why she is doing any of the things she's doing, because I think at this point it's not clear to her. She finds, I think, that she's in a bit of a routine and repetition. The show also uses a lot of emerging technologies, which we were lucky enough to get a grant from NIDA X to kind of experiment with a lot of new things that we wouldn't otherwise be able to experiment with. And so it kind of marries the text in a way where it's talking about, you know, like the technologies and how that is kind of terrifying in some ways, and how Essie is kind of chronically online. And those two worlds between what's real and what's not real, what's online and what's offline, get blurred a lot during the show.
So the technology is very important for this play. It would be a very different play if there wouldn't be the technology.
Yeah, I think it would be a very different play without the technology. The original production that I saw at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival in 2019 was completely stripped back to just an actress on stage with only sound and lighting. There was no movement or props or anything. So it was just the text, and it was really incredible to see. But I think our production really intelligently kind of marries what Margaret Perry is talking about in the play with what we're able to do in the Old Fitz and what we're capable of now with the incredible artists that are attached as well. And I think the work is so much richer from involving all of these different things like live cinema, motion capture, animation, that it really, you get a deeper understanding of kind of what Essie's talking about and how she's perceiving the world through her eyes, because we're able to see her eyes in so many different ways through the cameras and through the screens and everything, that, it's rather than it being a one-woman show, it's a one-woman show with all of these elements that bring everyone else in her life to life.
What attracted you to that role?
Well, after I saw the production in Edinburgh, I immediately bought the play because I just thought it was incredible. The text was so rich and so well written and real. It was before anything before I'd seen anything else like that now we see more and more. But yeah, I just think that the way Margaret is able to describe the feelings of disassociation and having different kind of mental health episodes, I think is kind of unparalleled. Like, there's certain points in the text where Essie kind of has these soliloquies, these long monologues, seemingly to no one. She's in a scene, in a conversation, but then she kind of drifts off. And it's just beautifully poetic in the way that she's describing how she's feeling. That really attracted me. But it's also incredibly funny. She's very witty. She's got a very dry sense of humor, and it's really nice to see her kind of move through the world, and we as the audience are able to kind of connect with her, thinking that everything's kind of a little bit stupid and pointless at points. And yeah, I just really fell in love with the character because she has so many different ideas and so many different emotions that it's a real gift for an actor to be able to try.
The use of the technology, did that scare you or did you embrace that?
Well, I think at first the use of the technology was a bit daunting because originally I reached out to our director, Zoe, with the text just for her to kind of read back in 2020. And Zoe also had a similar connection to it immediately that I did, which we both just thought it was incredible and just a beautiful text, really. And it wasn't until I think we got Morgan Moroney, who's also a co-director and one of the designers on the show, until we got Morgan attached, that I think that's when the technology aspects started to emerge, because Morgan has a larger background in that kind of side of things, whereas me and Zoe are more kind of classic theatre makers. And so we're really, really lucky with our team to be able to have so many fantastic minds in the room, while also having like artists and creators that can keep the ball rolling, both like on stage and on screen. So it was daunting. There's been times when it's just me and Zoe in a room and we're really not sure how to turn on the cameras. But yeah, we've been really lucky to get so many incredible artists attached to the show that now I'm just very excited to see what we can pull off, because we were lucky enough to do a week's development at NIDA through the NIDA X program. And in that week, we were able to achieve so much in terms of the use of this program called Unreal Engine, which basically is boundless, and you can create these whole immersive worlds on the screen that you can just keep going and adding and creating and making more and more rich. That I'm just so excited to see what we can pull off in a couple of weeks.
Did you go to NIDA? And so when you were studying at NIDA, do you learn about this interactive technology?
I graduated last year in November. I guess I graduate this year. But in the last few years, they've tried to engage more technology aspects, and we work slightly more with the designers, but it's really kind of learning on the job, particularly for this show. But I think the secret is just asking and working with artists who have a better understanding than you might, because I certainly couldn't do this by myself, or certainly wouldn't be able to create the work I'm able to create, we're able to create, I should say, without the expertise that we have. But that being said, Morgan and Daniel, who's our other kind of tech head on the show and sound designer, Daniel Hearn, they are both also learning on the job in terms of what they're capable of and what the program is capable of. So it's a lot of trial and error. There's a lot of thinking we can do something, getting about an hour towards it, and then realizing that it won't be possible in today's rehearsal because it needs about 10 hours of programming. But I think NIDA is moving more towards that kind of landscape now and kind of adapting to, because it's a growing industry we see now with STC and the Old Fitz and more theatres kind of engaging with shows that use live cinema and different technology elements. I think it'd be silly not to, really.
It is a solo performance. Apart from that being very challenging, have you done solo performance before?
I have done solo performance before. I was lucky enough last year to perform in a show called Overflow, written by Travis Alabanza, that was on at Darlinghurst Theatre Company.
SD, does she need to be a lesbian?
I think, interestingly, her ex-partner, Caroline, in the show, Margaret writes a lot about how the line between where Essie ends and Caroline begins, because they're so close, gets blurred. And so I think the relationship, like in a woman-to-woman relationship, that aspect of it is really important for the story, because you start to understand that Essie found a lot of herself in her partner, Caroline, and kind of made most of her personality around this woman. And so when that was no longer there, and we find out through the play kind of what happened to their relationship and how it broke down. And then you start to understand how Essie is spiraling so intensely because of kind of the just ferocious nature that these lesbian relationships can sometimes have. But I think it is an integral part of the story. It's certainly also, I think, kind of alludes to Essie's deep kind of understanding of wanting to know more about herself and kind of exploring her body and her sexuality and everything. And I think she thinks so much in the show. She thinks every scene. She's just kind of like daydreaming or imagining or kind of noticing things off into the corner that she gets to tell the audience, but the other characters in the scene aren't necessarily seeing. So I think that she's thinking about those other aspects of her life as well, like her queerness, reflected in the work. Yeah.
Do you prefer one over the other, like playing a queer character, or it doesn't really matter for you?
I certainly prefer playing queer characters. I just think as an actor, I'm always able to give more and have a more authentic response, even reading, performing, writing, all of that. I have and will play straight or cisgendered characters as well. But I think with being able to play queer characters, it just adds so many more layers to the performance. You know, anytime you see a queer actor play a queer role, you immediately understand why it's so important, because they're able to just connect in a different way that is not available to an artist who can't connect, can't understand how that character feels in that way, I guess. So yeah, it is definitely a privilege, and I've been really lucky that all the major roles I've had outside of NIDA have all been queer characters, and I guess that speaks to what I look for in work and the kind of work that comes to me, but the kind of work that I go out for. Really, I want to kind of speak to my own experiences, but also speak to my own community and try and relieve any kind of.
And do you aim to go into TV at one stage, or do you really love the stage?
I really do love the stage. I think I'll always love the stage. I'm currently in a TV series actually at the moment on Paramount Plus called Last King of the Cross, which is slowly coming out week by week. So that was a really exciting experience. That was kind of my first major TV role. But stage, I think, will always be where I really learn the most as an actor. And I'm sure almost every actor will say the same. Just a connection that you have every night with the audience and with the live aspect. it's kind of unparalleled, really. But there are elements to screen that I absolutely love. I think with TV work as well, I have a lot of passion for working behind the camera as well and creating in that way, as I do in theatre, working, writing and creating and devising. I'd love to do more of that. But yeah, I'm really open to opportunities in terms of just storytelling rather than what form that storytelling might take. I'm not too picky.
This funny and furious new play has its Australian premiere at the Old Fitz Theatre from 11th of March. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you would like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from us, you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, or Facebook using the tag @LOTL or head over to our website lotl.com. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.